Welcome to the Viking Age podcast. It's the official podcast of the VikingAge.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age as well as bring me the news, zone coverage, and the Brookings Register. My co-host is Adam Patrick, who is the managing editor of the Viking Age. We do this every Monday and Thursday right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We are also on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, rate, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can get the word to the masses. Adam, this was supposed to be a fun episode, honestly, because at about 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, Central Time, for those of you watching outside of the Central Time Zone, excuse me, the Vikings were absolutely piss-pounding the Green Bay Packers.
Yep.
Like, they ran into a bad team, and they rubbed their nose in it for about 50 minutes of that game. And it was glorious. It was awesome. Like, shoot that into my neck next time I'm depressed or sad or anything, because that is exactly how the fan base was feeling. Then the football god said, well, that's enough of that, and threw a lightning bolt as Kirk Cousins' Achilles. So, yeah, Kirk Cousins is out for the season now. He tore his Achilles. It was confirmed on Monday. And, yeah, so we're here. So, I don't know. I don't even know how to ask this like professionally. You know what I mean? Because I'm still in shock that it happened. Like Kirk Cousins doesn't get hurt. He doesn't get injured. He doesn't do any of this. And this team was on the rise. It was something was happening here. I don't think they were going to win the Super Bowl, but you could look and see the improvement with this team. So let's just start here. What was your initial reaction to this injury yesterday?
I feel bad for Kirk. I do, because first off, as much as people think maybe you and I aren't the biggest fans of him, it still sucks to see that happen to a player like that, especially someone who's going into free agency next year. So obviously he's probably not going to make anywhere close to the money he was going to make if he finished the season. So there's that. And then you think about like him just being a competitor and the season that he was having, he was playing really good. He was probably playing the best he's might have ever played in a whole season. So you feel bad for him like that. I think a lot of people have commented to either us or like some of the Score North people, like, you got what you wanted finally, and my response to that is just like, no one asked for this. We asked for after the season, when the season is over and Kirk is perfectly healthy, for the Vikings to explore other options. No one was like, oh, I hope he tears his Achilles in the middle of the season and the Vikings are left with no idea what to do. Nobody wanted that. So I don't know where any of that is coming from. I think it's just weird to think that way. But then my other thought process is, I'm a little excited to see how the rest of the season plays out, to see how Kevin O'Connell handles this with his locker room, to see if they have something in Jaren Hall. He's at least going to get a start next Sunday against the Falcons, because they really don't have any other options unless they want to start Sean Mannion, and nobody wants to see that. So because Nick Mullins is on injured reserve and he's not able to come back yet.
I didn't even remember that Sean Mannion was on the team.
Yeah, he's on the practice squad.
They like snuck him in beneath our noses. It was just like, here, nobody will notice. And oh, Sean Mannion's here.
Yeah, so nobody wants to see that. So it'll be interesting to see what can happen. And if there was ever a fan base that has been prepared for something like this before, I would say the Vikings have. It's never easy. It's never easy for something like this to happen. But if there was a fan base that has kind of gone through the motions before, with Teddy going down, that's kind of what it felt like yesterday. Like, it was very similar in the fact that, like, it's just a gut punch where because the Vikings were 4-1 in their last 5 games. Seemed like they were turning their season around. Seemed like they could actually maybe even challenge for the division. And then this happens, and you have no idea. But in the past, the Vikings have been successful with backup quarterbacks multiple times. 2017 with Case Keenum, '98 with Randall Cunningham, Brad Johnson in the past, Jeff George in the past, Gus Frerotte. You know, the Vikings have done this before in their franchise history, so this isn't anything new. And we just saw the Niners do it last year with Brock Purdy. And everyone likes to compare to that, but it's easy. It's right there. Plenty of teams have been able to do well or do fine after their starting quarterback goes down. So the season is not over. And you know what? Even if they do play bad, guess what? They get probably a top 10 pick, and they can maybe get a new franchise quarterback. So to me, you know, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season to see how it plays out. But as far as Kirk Cousins goes, I think some people were like, now this gives him a better shot at coming back because he'll be cheaper. And I'm like, I just, I don't know. I don't know about that yet. I think that's something that we still have to wait for and see because there's what, 9 games to go left in the regular season. So I still think we have a long ways to go. But yeah, we might have seen Kirk Cousins throw his last pass in a Vikings uniform already.
I'm going to rewind it a little bit before we, get too far down that rabbit hole. Just, whatever. I'm just going to go back to what I said at the beginning because this absolutely sucks. Like, I want to clarify that. You mentioned it. You and I have been critical of Kirk Cousins on this show a lot of times. There have been some games where he looks like the second coming of Dan Marino, and there are others where he looks like he has no idea how to play football and he just wants his blanket. I don't think this team was going to the Super Bowl, but the last 2 weeks, you could see something happen. You could even see it going back to 0-3 because it was that same kind of belief, right? Like when the Vikings started 0-3 under Mike Zimmer, it was every man for himself. Like, screw you, I'm getting my money, et cetera, et cetera. We blame Kirk for that a lot. Kevin O'Connell kept this team together at 0-3, and they won 4 of their next 5 games to get back to 500. And by the way, the one they lost was to the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe. So, I mean, there is no shame with that, even without Taylor Swift. So T-Swift was not there. It is hilarious. She wasn't at the Denver game, right?
Okay. And they lost.
And they lost. She's got to pull up again.
They're in
they need
Germany
to get this in the production meeting. Like, Taylor, you just can't skip games like this.
In Germany. They're in Germany this weekend, so everyone's like, "Is she gonna be going to Germany?" And everyone's like, "I don't think so."
just a mega star. They go crazy over celebs over there too. But we're not going to talk about. We're not going to dive into Taylor Swift. We're going to keep it here
right now
because look at the stuff that was going on with this team, and it was exciting. Like, Jordan Addison is a freaking superstar. Like, he is on his way right now. And last year I was saying, hey, Jordan Addison would be a great addition to this team. He does a lot of the things that Adam Thielen does with route running, getting open. He's a downfield threat that Thielen is no longer anymore. And look at what has happened. He looks like a perfect fit for this offense.
He cooks Jair Alexander.
Yeah, Jair didn't have a safety over each shoulder yesterday.
No,
it's kind of where was his big hat and him talking about how he's the greatest cover corner ever.
Did you see what he said after the game yesterday?
No, what did he say? I'm interested.
He actually was like, because they talking about the play where Addison lined up in the backfield and scored a touchdown, kind of just blew by him. He was like, that was just a good play call. And then they asked him probably 10 questions, and he did the Marshawn Lynch thing, and just every answer he was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. And then you just look at the comments, and Packers fans are like roasting him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jordan Addison, yeah, you talked about him. Like, before Kirk got hurt, after yesterday, I was like, I think Justin Jefferson getting hurt might have been like one of the best things to happen to this team, at least for Kirk going forward, because at times early in the season it felt like Kirk Jefferson, if he wasn't open, then he struggled to find someone else, and he would just toss it to CJ Ham or toss it a yard in front of him to TJ Hawkinson, where now he's looking downfield to Addison, he's looking downfield to KJ Osborne, he's looking to Brandon Powell. TJ Hawkinson seems to be back to what he was when he first got to the Vikings last year. the screen game is working. With not Alexander Madison, but the other guy.
Cam
What
Akers.
Cam Akers? Yes, sorry. It's working with him and Ty Chandler sometimes as well. It just seemed like it was, and they had a great offensive line. Like everything was coming together, and then the grass,
TJ Hawkinson was catching passes.
the grass field. We've heard all the arguments about turf the last few weeks, and what do you know? The grass field is the one where Kirk Cousins hurt his Achilles. So that argument's got to be put to bed for a little bit because it's football. Like you're gonna get hurt. That's part of like my reaction yesterday too. Was like, this is the sport that we love and watch, and we know that this is like sometimes the consequences. Like things like this can happen in a second. So if you've been watching this game or covering this game for a long time, you can't be surprised by stuff like this. It still sucks, but you can't be shocked that a player blew out his knee or tore his Achilles. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next.
And it happens at a bad time. Like outside of the whole team starting to peak, like you also have the trade deadline in 48 hours. Not even that right now. What we're on at 6:32 Central Time. It's like, okay, we're less than 24 hours until. So they basically had to wake up this morning and be like, do we want to trade for Ryan Tannehill? Do we want to trade for whoever? See a lot of names being floated out. None of them fit under the salary cap because Vikings don't have any money. They don't have money to go get a guy right now. And I mean, the other narrative that died was kind of like his teammates are kind of like look at Kirk and be like, what a weird dude, like whatever. No, they were like, it was like somebody died in the locker room. Like Brian O'Neill was about to like burst into tears. Dalton Reisner, who's just like, man, I look up to that. Yeah, 5 weeks. And he's like, I look up to that man so much. And like, whatever. At like, those guys were so behind. And it makes me wonder what happened. I mean, I'm not going to go into, he wanted more money or whatever, like contract, like what happened there? Because it seems like the Vikings love Kirk. Seems like Kirk loves the Vikings. Like it makes me wonder what happened with that contract extension here. But I mean, with that hanging over this is an absolute kick in the balls. Like that's what this is. It's just like, like I said, it was the football god sitting from above and being like, all right, that's enough. And then right at his Achilles. And the other thing is too, like it's draining, like with a lot of things that Kirk, which is not Kirk's fault. This is not a Kirk thing. Like you said, the fans. I got a text from a friend who watches the show. He talks to me regularly, and he's just like, you got what you wanted. You're going to see what it's like without Kirk Cousins. I'm like, I didn't want this. I didn't want Jaron Hall to step in. Nobody in their mind said Jaron Hall. Go bash and listen to me bash the shit out of Jaron Hall.
I was the only one who was like,
preseason games. Yeah, I'm like, you're high as hell. Like the guy's not good. And like everybody's just like, oh, you're going to see what it's like without Kirk Cousins. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. And that's my opinion. Your opinion's different, but that's my opinion. And I'm going to force it on everyone.
I'm glad you saw that.
That guy too. It's just like, we got people laughing because he's coming off. Like, grow the fuck up, okay? Like, if you're going to do that. Like there's a whole lot of other people here that are just using this as a I was right moment, and that just doesn't sit well with me because you know what, a guy is hurt, and we've bashed Kirk Cousins a lot on this show. I will continue to say it, full disclosure, but at the same time, human being. The guy was trying to make as much money in a sport where shit like this can happen, and it's like the whammy and press your luck. I totally just aged myself there, but I mean, it's just like, big money, no whammy, no, and then this little red thing comes across the screen. Like that's basically what Kirk Cousins had. So if you're taking a victory lap, stop. Like really, like at this point, the Vikings just need to decide what they want to do because this is one of the most devastating injuries in franchise history. Not like Teddy was really bad. Like I would probably put Teddy ahead of this just because everybody kind of thought they had the franchise quarterback.
It was kind of similar. It had a kind of similar feeling though. It was before the season, but it had a similar feeling where like things are coming together, things are turning around, and then it's just like that. I mean, you have the Adrian Peterson
multi-ligament knee injury back in
and
2012 or
suspension
I think 2011, but
and
that
suspension.
was at the end of a season. So like it was just kind of like, oh, Adrian might not be ready for next year. Like this is like, okay, the Vikings are in the playoffs and now they don't have a quarterback.
Well, you had his
Oh
suspension
shit.
in 2014.
Yeah. I
So
mean, that was different though. It was just kind of like that was
yeah,
just kind of like an eyebrow raiser, like
it was.
triple knee. You're like, ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
You kind of feel sorry for the dude when the
there's that.
guy.
There's the Culpepper injury. That
Oh yes,
that was around a similar time in the season too. I think someone posted that like
week
it happened
6.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think they were 2-4 coming into that game.
Yeah.
So
There's that. Did Randall Cunningham get hurt? I don't think so. I think he was just fat and they
no,
just replaced. I
yeah,
know
he got benched for Jeff George.
Brad Johnson. What did he do? Break his ankle in '98. And then Cunningham came in, and then everyone's like, "Oh well, see you later, Brad Johnson." I think Warren Moon broke his ankle or something like that in '96, and that's when Brad Johnson replaced him. So they're like, yeah, there's been a lot. But yeah, devastating injuries. Yeah, Peterson, Sidney Rice, but that was like preseason.
Yeah.
Percy Harvin, you could say 2012.
Well, and quarterback's just so important. Like when you
Yeah.
get a major injury to a quarterback, it's like usually you don't have a guy that's ready to step in. You know
Well,
what I mean?
what about
Like even
Bradford?
now,
Bradford
yeah.
2017. Like that had
Oh,
similar
his
feeling.
knee.
That had similar feeling too after that first game when he was on fire.
And then Case looked
the next
pretty
week they're
bad
like,
against Pittsburgh.
yeah. Then the next week they're like, his knees don't work anymore. So Case, you got to play. And so everyone was. It's kind of how we are now. We're like, the season's already over. Like, what we're gonna go with Case Keenum for the rest of the year, and that turned out pretty well. I'm not saying that's how this is going to go this year, but if there, at the same time, if there is a team that is equipped right now to put in a rookie quarterback or a veteran backup quarterback, you're not asking them to do a lot. You're not asking them to put up 300 yards a week, 3 touchdowns. You're not asking that, but you can throw to Addison. Jefferson's probably going to be back after the next game because it sounds like his hamstring is just better than they thought it was. So you're going to have Jefferson, Hawkinson, Addison. Cam Akers is pretty much finding a role in this offense. The offensive line is looking good. The defense coming together. Like,
but how far are you getting with that?
Right.
Are you getting the 7th seed and getting your ass kicked in the playoffs? Because if that's the case,
yeah, I think I'm starting to get over the fact that like they just want to get the playoffs every year, and we're just gonna have to deal with that because they're not gonna tank. They're not. Like,
yeah.
As much as we would like them to, the owners are not gonna let them do that. And until
so what do you want? Do you want them to
What
make
do
the
I want?
playoffs now? Yeah.
I want them to trade Danielle Hunter tomorrow. I want them to trade, Ezra Cleveland, Harrison Smith, but they're not going to do that. I want them to get a franchise quarterback. But
so here's my next question then based off of that. Is the Kirk Cousins era over in Minnesota? Because you mentioned it a little bit that some people are sitting there going, hey, he could be cheaper. He could definitely be cheaper. But I also think that opens the door for other teams to pursue Kirk Cousins in the offseason.
Correct.
You're telling me after what Brock Purdy did yesterday, some of those interceptable passes are going to start to get caught. And Kyle Shanahan still got that girl in the red dress just sitting there dancing on the bar while he's sipping on a beer like one of that got away.
Now the question is Purdy going to last, the whole season? Is he going to make it? Is he not going to not get benched? Because they got what?
Yeah.
Sam Darnold behind him. Oh, wow, that is a weird sentence. They got Sam Darnold behind him.
It is just the most like arrogant thing ever.
Yeah.
Like I got Sam Darnold pushing him.
Yeah, I mean, every offseason we know there's always teams that are looking for quarterbacks. So there's going to be a team that wants to bring him in. There's going to be a team that would have wanted to bring him in if he was going to be expensive. And it's really going to be up to Kirk what he wants to do. I think I watched an interview actually yesterday. It was from Fox before the game. It was on the pregame show where he said, like, I wanted to be like a one-team quarterback when I was in Washington, but that wasn't possible. And I want to, now I want to be a two-team quarterback and stay in Minnesota as long as I can. So I think he wants to stay. It's really up to Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell. I saw a lot of people like, oh, they can draft someone next year, have him sit for a year and bring Kirk Cousins back on a cheap contract. Okay, but we also have to remember that Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, after this year, they're gonna have 2 years left on their deal. Are they gonna be allowed to develop a quarterback? That's part of the equation too. Like,
here's what I would ask. Do you think at least Kevin O'Connell, do you think he has earned an extension for what he has done in the first half of the season? Because I think the answer is yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
I think the Wolves are like, okay, this guy,
and to me,
he knows what he's doing. Adofo-Mensah, we'll see what happens this offseason, but for sure.
I think Kwesi's redeemed himself a little bit with this draft class. I know people are like, oh, Jordan Addison fell into his lap. It's like, okay, but he could have. Justin Jefferson fell in the Eagles' lap, in 2020, and they didn't pick him. They picked Jalen Reagor. So he could have easily messed that up, and he wanted to trade back, but he didn't. I know Kevin O'Connell was like, hey, don't do that. But he listened to him. And that's part of being a GM, is listening to your coaches and people like that. And Mekhi Blackman's looking good. I think Jaquelin Roy is even getting like some action in the middle there. Mm-hmm. He's looking pretty good. Like, this draft class looks much better than last year's, and they're even getting some contributions from the guys last year as well, like Ty Chandler, Andrew Booth's in there now, Ed Ingram obviously. So, like, believe it or not, I think a year and a half to judge a GM on what he's done is a little too quick. Give this guy some time. So I wouldn't be, and I think the Vikings, the ownership and other people know that, like, if you keep a coach and a GM together, it's probably gonna do better than if you just got a new GM or you got a new coach, because those guys are always gonna want their own guys. And these two, like, Kevin O'Connell was handpicked by Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, so he's the guy that he wanted. You look at teams like the Seahawks; they've had the same GM and head coach for over a decade now. And they've been okay. You look at the Niners; they've been doing pretty well with Shanahan and John Lynch, even though we don't really like them, but they still have been doing pretty well.
And John Lynch works under Kyle Shanahan.
He does.
Like, that's Shanahan runs the show there. He just John Lynch has the title.
Era being over. Yeah, a lot of people mentioned, like, it's going to come down to the Wolves. It's going to be their decision. Like, that's how this organization operates. They make those big franchise-altering decisions, or at least they okay with you, being able to pursue a decision like that. Like,
but here's the other part of this equation. I guess, how much does Kirk Cousins cost? Because if we're going ironclad $35 million or whatever it is, like, then you have to get rid of people. You still have to pay Justin Jefferson, because that didn't get done this year, and that's looking pretty bad right now. Danielle Hunter, we don't know what's going to happen with him. Yeah. And we don't know
Christian Darrisaw.
He's also going to get this offseason, maybe the offseason after, but he's in line to get paid. Those are three guys that you're going to have market-setting contracts with in the next. And of course, I did love how the Packers signed Rashawn Gary to a big-ass contract extension this morning, just to drive the price up a little bit on Danielle Hunter. But
there's that. And then, the way Cam Bynum's playing, he looks like he's going to get an extension.
Mm-hmm. Although it is a safety, so I mean,
it'll be cheaper. Yes.
Yeah.
But still, that's more money you have to, and eventually Jordan Addison's going to want to get paid if he keeps playing the way that he is, and he's going to cost a lot. These are just things you have to already think about. And investing over $30 million a year in a quarterback who just tore his Achilles, who might not even be 100% by the start of next season, that might not be the best decision for your team to make.
And here's the other thing too, not to interrupt you, but I just want to point this out. Timing is everything with this.
Yeah.
Like, right now, that Kirk injury, I mean, there's two sides to it. You have the player side, and Kevin O'Connell, even when they're 0-3, Kevin O'Connell is probably preaching, guys, don't quit. We're better than this. Like, don't quit. That's basically what he's been saying, like, for a full year. That's how they had 11 fourth quarter comebacks or whatever it was last year. Yep. Whatever, 8 fourth quarter, 11-0 one-score games or whatever it is. My mind's kind of like melting right now just thinking about it. But I also think too, if he's saying, guys, don't quit, and then all of a sudden the front office trades Danielle Hunter, Jordan Hicks, and anybody else with a shred of value, it's kind of like, what did the front office just do? Did they just quit? No,
Well,
no, of course not. Like there's damage control there. The other part of this is too, you look at the draft class that's coming up. And like, unless the Vikings just do something insane and just throw a shitload of picks at a team, they're not getting Caleb Williams, probably not getting Drake May. Packers might get Drake May, actually, the way they looked yesterday. They are down bad, Chief. But the Vikings, I mean, there are other quarterbacks that you could look at in this draft. Like Bo Nix is a guy that you got to take a look at. He's been great under pressure. He's got a big arm. I know some
Jordan
people
Reed
like
said about
JJ
him?
McCarthy. Bo Nix?
Jordan, how he's a good fit for a McVay, O'Connell, Shanahan offense. I'm just like,
he will be 24 week one.
I was gonna say,
year,
isn't
so
he
he's
the
a
same
little
age
on
as
the
Jaron
old.
Hall?
Yeah, Jaron Hall's 25 though.
Yeah.
He's in that Hendon Hooker range, which it's funny we mentioned him now because Michael Penix sounds a lot like Hendon Hooker with 4 major knee injuries, and he's dominating. He's been in there for so long. Hendon Hooker, is he even practicing yet?
Then you got the Michigan kid. You don't know if he's good because of the sign stealing or not. So yeah,
Quinn Ewers from Texas. He's like.
And then there'll be other guys too, like that we haven't even heard of that are like, oh, this prospect out of like
Michael Pratt from Tulane,
Southern Kentucky. He's got a gun on his arm. Okay.
Michael Pratt is a guy that here's a guy that
like,
I played with in NCAA 14, and I'm like, this dude's got like 99 arm strength. This guy rules. And then people are like starting to jump on his bandwagon. I'm like, oh my god, I discovered him. But
did you even know who Tyler Bagent was before he came in to play?
No, I thought they pulled him out of Section 304.
I had no idea who that was.
That whole thing is probably over after last night too, after getting absolutely dismantled by the Chargers. But cool story.
Yeah, it's those stories are always fun, and maybe Jaron Hall can get a couple wins and have his own little story.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. What do the Vikings do now? Like Jaron Hall, obviously, he's the guy who's probably the front runner. I bet he starts at Atlanta no matter what happens because it's just such a quick turnaround. Yeah, like if you bring in anybody right now, Dalton Reisner came in on Tuesday and he didn't play on Sunday. Like, what do you think it is for the quarterback, especially in this offense? And you can't lean on the running game because it sucks. Like
I said,
Madison, RB1.
Their only other option right now is Sean Mannion because Nick Mullins is on injured reserve and he can't come back until week 10 like Justin Jefferson. And you're not going to sign somebody or trade for somebody, and you're not going to do what they did with Josh Freeman. That just doesn't happen. That was a stupid decision back then. It's a stupid decision now. But like he's
laughing because Chris Thomas had brought up that game the other day, just out of him. Like, my first game ever was the Josh Freeman game.
Jaron Hall. I'm rooting for the kid. I'll say that. I like the way he comes across just in his press conferences and talking to the media. Like, he seems like he's not even like the bright lights don't bother him as far as that goes. Now on the field, could be different. But like I said, he's going to get to throw to Jordan Addison next week. KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, Cam Akers going to have a good offensive line against a Falcons team that looks terrible. They can't rush the passer. They can't score points. I think Taylor Heineke is probably going to start for them. So I might actually be a little bit more worried about that than
their coach is a dumbass, but go ahead.
Yeah, he is. They're not running Bijan Robinson. So
after spending a top 10 draft pick on him.
Yeah. So like if there was a team and a game to like start a rookie quarterback, this is kind of a perfect scenario. So I'm looking forward to that. And if he doesn't play well, Nick Mullins is healthy the week after, and you just put him in to probably play for the rest of the season. That I don't think they're going to trade for anybody. I think Diana Rossini of The Athletic, now not ESPN, tweeted today that there haven't been any significant talks in terms of the Vikings trading for a quarterback, and they shouldn't give up assets for a guy that's going to come in, one, who's not going to play right away because he's got to learn the offense, and two, might not even work out. So like it's not worth giving up unless you're giving up a 7th round conditional pick in like 2026. There's really no point in trading for a quarterback. I do think this name has been thrown around a lot. He came in for a workout earlier this year. Colt McCoy worked with O'Connell for 3 years.
Great quarterback name, by the way.
It is.
Elite.
He worked with O'Connell for 3 years in Washington. He did pretty decent with the Cardinals, and he started 6 games the last 2 years. He won 3 of them. So if you need a guy to come in, just run your offense, make minimal mistakes. No, he's the guy, Colt McCoy. But is he a better option than a Nick Mullins? Like, that's the question you have to ask yourself too, because we have to think when we watched that quarterback series, Kirk Cousins, like he admitted, he didn't really feel comfortable with the offense until like week 8 or 9. That's Kirk Cousins.
I think he said a Detroit game in a press conference too.
Yeah, this is the guy who like studies night and day, except for Tuesdays, night and day. The playbook, the schemes, the defenses, everything. Like he's got his own offense. He writes on whiteboard. He's got notebooks. Like if it takes Kirk Cousins that long to understand offense, then it's probably going to take whoever you bring in or trade in for even longer. So I think they're going to roll with Jaren Hall. See how he does this weekend. If he doesn't do well, okay, you put Nick Mullins in, and then they're not going to give up assets to get somebody midseason who, unless they're trading for Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, none of those guys are available. So those are the only guys worth trading midseason. And even then, like who is the last quarterback a team has traded for in the middle of a season that has worked out? Like has gone on. Now, I'm not saying has worked out in the future, but I mean like that season, who has been traded for in the middle of a season, come in and worked out? I cannot think of anyone. Like I'm sure there has been people, maybe, but I cannot think of anyone recently.
We mentioned the Bradford trade, but that was at the beginning of the year, and he had to miss the first game before he actually made a start, just so
and
he
that didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean he did okay. It worked out for him because he set the all-time completion record. Problem was the offensive line didn't work out because it was absolutely god awful. We haven't mentioned a name that is available right now, apparently. A lot of people talking about Tom Brady right now.
No.
You make the call though, don't you? You gotta text him.
I mean, Kevin O'Connell probably has his number because they were teammates, with the Patriots, so probably has his number. But I think Brady has said pretty much anytime anyone's talked about him coming back this year, like every time, like, no, I'm not coming back. I think he realized probably not the best for his family if he continues to play football. And I think last year kind of taught him that the hard way. And I think he's just come to terms with, like, the Patriots they were already retired his number and inducted him into their Hall of Fame. And he looks like he lost like 30 pounds. I'm not doubting that he couldn't come in and play. But like I said, even Tom Brady, I wouldn't feel confident about even bringing him in mid-season to learn a completely new offense and lead this team to sneaking into the playoffs. Like, it's just very difficult. This sport is very difficult to just pop in. Like, the only position, that's why you don't see quarterbacks traded at the trade deadline. You see running backs and receivers and pass rushers because they can, and tight ends, because they can come in almost immediately and make an impact. We saw it with TJ Hawkinson last year. And we've seen with pass rushers in the past make quick impacts, like Von Miller with the Rams and everything. Quarterbacks, it's way too difficult to do that middle of the season for it to matter. So I would be very surprised if they made a trade, it would be for someone like Case Keenum, who's a backup with the Texans, who spent a year with Kevin O'Connell in Washington. I think he did pretty well with the Vikings in 2017.
That would be like the ultimate like movie plot, wouldn't it? Just like
it would. Yeah, Case Keenum comes back to replace Kirk Cousins, and he leads them to a Super Bowl.
Another name that somebody tossed to me this morning, talking to a friend. A lot of people aren't going to like this one, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. Colin Kaepernick. would
No,
you?
no.
It would be such. It'd be such a lightning rod because I feel like some people are just so hardwired against him at this point that
Yeah, and that's part of it too. Like
teams aren't going to make that risk, which is unfortunate.
it is.
But
I'm not gonna lie. That's
but
the
he
point.
also, when was the last time he played in an NFL game?
2016.
I'll look it up here. But I mean, the person
It
that
was a
texted
while.
me said, he's probably wants it. I mean,
But
he probably would
here,
work hard.
yeah. Here's the thing too. He's been
Like that's just
offered.
it. I anybody but they bring in right now, it's not going to matter. Like I'm just going to throw it. I don't want to give up
Right.
assets for a guy.
Correct.
They could bring in, they could bring in. It could be like the Pepsi commercial, right?
Johnny
Bring in
Manziel.
Dan Marino right now, and like it's not going to end real well. Like they are screwed. They are screwed. Basically,
Well,
I hate being that negative, but I mean, out of all the options, I'm just saying, Jaron Hall, step on up, man. If
Yeah.
you fumble against the
And
Falcons and it doesn't work out,
even with him, we
well.
don't know with him because when we saw him play in the preseason, it was with mostly third stringers on the field and fourth stringers and even fifth stringers. So like, it's extremely hard to tell what he's capable of when he's put in those limited opportunities with those people when he's got Ali Udo blocking for him out there, just valeting pass rushers into his face. And then on Sunday when he was put in the game, it's like, okay, go, and it's like he's in his own 10-yard line.
Hey, he did better than Kellen Mond.
He did. That's a very low bar to clear. Very low.
Hey, we got to start low here.
You do have to start somewhere, so there's that. He made the team. That's better than Kellen Mond. And I think it's different too when you get a full week to prepare. Like you're going to be the quarterback, and the rest of your teammates know you're going to be the quarterback. You figure out what you're good at. Kevin O'Connell can put in plays that he knows that Jaron Hall can probably do well at. Like it's much different than just throwing a guy in there immediately. Like there aren't a lot of guys that can go in there just like at the drop of a hat and go. Like Gardner Minshew is probably one who can do that. Taylor Heineke, he can probably do that. Like there aren't a lot of guys that can just pop right in there and do really good. Tyrod Taylor, I guess you could put that category, but he just got hurt again and went to the hospital. Does he have to go to the hospital every time he gets hurt? Like, did you see that? He went to the hospital again.
Didn't the Giants have like 4 passing yards on
and
Sunday?
-9?
-9. Brian Dable, offensive genius as well. Just like,
with Tommy DeVito. I think he went to Illinois. I know he went to Syracuse for a few years and he went to Illinois for like 1 year.
Good
but
Lord.
Daniel Jones is coming back.
Yeah. Is that Donatel coming back too?
How bad does it have to get for a Giants fan to be like, oh, thank God Daniel Jones is coming back?
I looked it up, by the way. Colin Kaepernick's last game was in 2016.
Yeah.
So in 2015 and in 2015 and 2016, he went 3-16 combined. But in his last season, he threw 16 touchdowns and just 4 interceptions in 11 games. I'm not doing it. I'm not advocating. I'm just throwing out names. Like this is basically what it is right now. We're just tossing names at the wall and seeing what shit sticks right now because I don't know.
I know he's been offered.
I would think they would have that conversation. They'd have a conversation about anybody right now. Yeah. They'd be talking about Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz right now. So
yeah, that's the other one. That's the other one. Carson Wentz. Like
my prediction would be fulfilled like 2 years late. For those of you who don't know, I wrote a story, I believe, what was it, 2020, 2021, saying Carson Wentz would eventually be a Minnesota Viking. And like people,
wasn't he a Vikings
Philly fans freaked out. Like, why would they do that? He's starting Jalen Hurts. They only took him for nothing. And like, I don't know, Jalen Hurts looks kind of good. So,
I mean, I just want to know, like, when it comes to Carson Wentz, what does he do when he's in the locker room? What does he do that just makes everyone hate him so much? Because he doesn't come across as like a bad guy. Is he just like and people probably offended by this, but is he like in everyone's face with like his religion and everything that comes out of his mouth is like God this, God that, like, do this, do that with me. And like, I don't know what turns off people so much about Carson Wentz, because everywhere he's gone, that has followed him. Like, he's not a good leader or locker room guy. But then there's the thing of, Kevin O'Connell. You bring him in you don't have to be the leader of the team. You already have someone like that with Kevin O'Connell. He's the guy that's holding the locker room together. You don't need the quarterback to do that when you have Kevin O'Connell. It's nice to have a quarterback do that, but you don't need that with Kevin O'Connell. But that, like, in terms of guys who are available that you wouldn't have to give up a lot of assets, Carson Wentz is arguably the most talented guy out there. That's not saying a lot because there are not
Yeah.
a lot of options, but he is probably the most talented guy out there. I do not want him anywhere near the Vikings, but I would not be surprised if they at least, talk to him.
Let's wrap up this way, which, by the way, welcome everybody checking us out. Big audience.
Yeah.
I know people who have been on, like, there's only 14 people. No, there's like 5 usually when we talk about the Vikings. And people just listen to the show later. So if you're checking us out for the first time, this is the Viking Age podcast. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Brookings Register, Zone Coverage, the Viking Age, and Bring Me the News. Adam Patrick, he is the managing editor of the Viking Age. We do this twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Check it out. So if you're chilling, watching us, drop a comment below, make sure you like, ring the bell, do all those cool things. That way you never miss an episode when we go live again, and you can clown us as long as you want. Please. I'm going to wrap up with just one question for you, because we said this Tuesday, 3 p.m., trade deadline. By a lot of time people watch this, it might be past right now. But I mean, what should they do? I think you and I are both against hemorrhaging future assets. I think if anything, you should get future assets, because this team might be DOA here from now on. Not that they're ever going to say that publicly, but I think they would have an idea. Like you kind of mentioned it earlier. You're trading Danielle Hunter. You're trading Jordan Hicks. You're trading anybody with a little bit of value, get a little bit of an edge.
Mm-hmm. That's what I would do. That's not what I think they're going to do. I think Danielle Hunter still has a legitimate shot of being traded. That's the biggest trade asset they have right now.
I think it's the only guy that would move.
Yeah.
Unless they bring in a guy on defense.
Yeah.
I think Danielle Hunter is the one guy that they would subtract and be like, okay, we got to be realistic here. Yeah. But again, what message does that send to the locker room?
Yeah. I mean, he's a free agent next year. I think a lot of guys would be like, it's the NFL. It's part of the business. It's what happens. Mm-hmm. You just become numb to those situations. I don't think there'd be hard feelings, because like they realize the situation as well, and what the Vikings would be doing in terms of moving on from Danielle would be to try and help this team get better in the future. So there's no bad blood or anything, and I think Danielle wouldn't feel that way either. He would be fine with, if he gets to go to a contender like the Jaguars or something like that. I think he's going to be just fine. But yeah, I think he's the only one that they might trade. I think if any team offers the Vikings a second-round pick, they have to take that for Danielle Hunter. They have to take that. You cannot,
unless they want to sign him.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's possible. But
there's been no steam on that,
right? And we just talked about how they have to sign Darisaw, Jefferson, if they want to bring back Cousins now. And a bunch of other guys, like they at some point, like they did this last year. Or the offseason, they got rid of Thielen and they got rid of Kendricks, and Peterson and a bunch of those guys, because they couldn't afford them and they're getting too old. That's just what happens. So, and pass rushers, probably one of the positions you can replace the quickest in the draft. Maybe aside from running backs and receivers. But pass rushers are definitely up there. Yeah, obviously have to know what you're looking for, but if you can find a good one in the second or third round, pretty easily. But yeah, I other than that, I don't think they're gonna make any moves. And like I said, if they trade for a quarterback, it would be for like a backup, for like Case Keenum or Jacoby Brissett or something like that.
The one cautionary tale, and I think I've mentioned this before, when it comes to trading Hunter, is that the guy that comes to my mind is Chris Nolan. Back in the early 90s, he was, I mean, as Luke Braun put it, he was basically Randy Moss on defense for the Vikings when he got drafted in 1989. Got up there in age. I don't think he made his debut until he was like 24, 25. and had a couple of good seasons, started to tail off a little bit. They're like, all right, he's 32. We got to pay him. What do we do here? The Atlanta Falcons gave the Vikings, and this was a draft day trade, so it wasn't during the season or anything, but they gave them a second round pick in, I believe, 1994, and then a first round pick in 1995. First round pick turned out to be Derek Alexander, who,
well,
yeah, I mean, he had 7.5 sacks in 1998, but the Vikings had like no pass rush behind John Randall. When the Vikings were good again, they wound up, 19th in sacks. John Randall gets hurt in the NFC divisional round. They have no pass rush against Chris Chandler, and he throws for, I think it's 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Chris Dolman goes to Atlanta, has a couple of decent seasons, Then he signs with the 49ers, yes. And he has 3 straight seasons of 10 plus sacks. And then the Vikings are like, oh, God, we need a pass rusher. So they sign Chris Dolman, and he finishes his career with the Vikings in 1999. Danielle Hunter has more sacks than Chris Dolman had at the time he was traded from Minnesota, and he's 3 years younger. So if the Vikings did all of a sudden say, okay, let's start talking contract now. And, if we're so far apart, maybe we just got to do what we got to do at this point. But also, you got to put that into context. Like the Vikings have done a good job of finding pass rushers over the past couple of years. I mean, Danielle Hunter was a 3rd round pick. We know all about that. Everson Griffin was a 4th round pick. Brian Robinson, what round was he taken in? Like, I feel like he was
6th or 7th.
6th round. So, I mean, you can get guys, and maybe you do a sum of all parts things, but to have one dominant guy is pretty valuable. So, I don't know.
Have they drafted a pass rusher in this regime yet? I don't think they have.
No, I was actually just about to look up.
Oh, they've signed. They signed free agents. Oh, Brian Robinson was a 4th round pick, actually. Sorry, Brian Robinson. But they signed Andre Carter and Luigi Villon.
Ray Edwards too,
last year.
right?
Oh, they drafted him. Yep. So I wouldn't be so worried about the Danielle thing if you're comparing. I know you're not directly comparing it to Chris Dolman, but like different GMs and everything making decisions now. So I don't, and that was 40 years ago, 30 years ago. But similar situation though. I understand that, but I just think like if you got that package, the same package the Vikings got for Dolman, the 2nd round pick and the 1st round pick, and what would be 2025 now, you run to the phone and you say yes. Like, yes. And how many
name's Daniel Bryan? Yes,
right. And
yes.
How many opportunities are you going to have to trade a player like this and get the kind of value that you can get? Because also teams in the middle of the season tend to overpay for players than they do in the offseason. TJ Hawkinson, probably not worth a 2nd round pick, but that's
although he has looked better the last 2 weeks. I will give him that. But I looked it up, by the way. The last time the Vikings drafted a defensive end in the 1st round, 2005, it was Erasmus James.
Wow.
And the year before that, they took and they took Kenechi Udeza the year before that. They traded their 1st round pick in 2008, I believe, for Jared Allen.
Yep.
So that was going to be an edge rusher, but then they decided, hey, Jared Allen's pretty good.
Because Sharif Floyd was a defensive tackle, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So because he was drafted in the 1st round. But yeah, I just think like if you get an offer for a 2nd round pick for Danielle Hunter, you have to say yes. Like I don't really care if you want to sign him next year because you really can't afford to. You really cannot afford to. You have to make Justin Jefferson the priority. He has to be the priority.
Yes.
Like, stop doing this like, well, we could bring him back and then we'll let Justin wait a little longer and see if he'll sign him on like February 15th, like when the season is the first day is over. Like you need to extend him as soon as possible. His price is increasing minute by minute. He could not play for the rest of the year, and he would still probably be worth paying like the most money of any non-quarterback. By the way, Nick Bosa, how's that contract working out? He looks terrible.
It's almost like he needed training camp or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not looking good over there, Kyle. That feels so bad for you. But the other thing too, like with all this going on, is like the NFC, like after the Eagles, and that's it. That's it.
The,
That's it. After the
the
Eagles,
Eagles.
like the
And
Seahawks are in second. They're the second seed now.
yeah, that's wild. I know. I realized that at the end
So
of the game. I'm like, they're going to be 5-2.
so like they have flown. They have flown so far under the radar, but like good for them. They're well coached, and Geno Smith doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And yeah, they just got what's his face, Leonard Williams from the Giants today. They traded for him, so they're gonna be better. But yeah, like the NFC, this is the
I just slide that in there.
I've seen that. I've
very
seen a lot.
quickly.
I don't think the Lions are gonna do that.
The Lions aren't
seen,
going to help out a team
no,
in their division when they're leading them.
Well,
Be fun.
We've
but-
seen them. They did. I mean, you could say they did with Hawkinson last year, but they didn't want to pay him. That's why.
Right.
but-
Sorry to interrupt. That just stopped you right in your
It did.
tracks.
But like, if Jared Goff goes down, like Teddy Bridgewater is a guy you want
Yeah.
to have.
Yep.
And I think they paid him a good amount of money to be their backup. So
well, it's like people are saying Drew Lock too. It's like they're not going to trade their backup because, people.
No,
I mean, this
yeah,
is
like-
a great point by Jeff right here. No NFC team is going to help the Vikes.
No.
Very few AFC teams with good backups are going to help the Vikes. This is just something.
like,
I mean, Kirk hasn't even been on an injury report since 2013.
Right.
Like, that is insane.
Yeah.
But
I want to say he no, he practiced, so he wasn't on the injury report because he had like a rib injury a couple years ago. But he did like limited practice. He might have been. But yeah, like if you're in terms of trading for a backup, you have to find a team that's either completely out of it, like the Panthers and Andy Dalton. And I don't even know if they want to trade him because he's more of like a mentor right now at this point for Bryce Young. Or you have to look at it like a third string backup. Like I think Case Keenum is the third string guy in Houston right now behind Davis Mills. So that's the type of guys you can get. And is that worth giving up?
how
draft
desperate
capital?
are you going to get Case Keenum back here?
Like if guys get hurt, okay, I understand that. But if are those guys going to give you a better chance to win if that's what you're looking to do than Jaron Hall and Nick Mullins? Probably not. But yeah, my final guess is that they won't do anything at the trade deadline tomorrow, and they will by Wednesday they will sign Colt McCoy.
There you go.
That's what I think is going to happen. It's really exciting.
Colt
really
McCoy
exciting.
comes back with 45. I'm fully on board.
He should
McCoy
wear
45.
that number.
Yes. Teddy's
Yeah.
Is Teddy still 50
No.
for the Lions?
No.
Oh, they made him change it.
I think he's like, I think he's single digits now. I think. 'Cause
Okay,
that was during the preseason when they had
that
the
was
numbers.
wild.
He was
because David
like
Montgomery
three
had
different
5.
numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was like
Yeah.
3 different numbers in the preseason.
it's like Joe Mauer when he first started with the Twins. He was number 71, and then
Well, that's what the
turned into
Patriots
7.
do. The
Yeah.
Patriots do that for their rookies when they come in. They give them they give quarterbacks like numbers in the 70s.
Do
and
you? Quick trivia question: do you remember what number Randy Moss wore when he
18. Duh.
first had when he first showed up to training camp? He didn't wear 18.
You didn't? We were 88.
He didn't wear 88. That was already taken.
Yeah. I don't know that question. I didn't know he wore another number.
He wore number 6 in Patriots camp.
Oh, and the Patriot. Oh, I thought you were talking about the Vikings. So I was like, 18.
No.
Yeah, I remember 18.
Yeah,
I
he wore
would
6
love-
when he first got to New England. He was a mini camp, and
Okay.
they said, "Hey, 18 and 84 are taken. What do you want to wear?" And he goes,
Right.
"Just give me the damn number. I'll make the number." And he
Yep.
ran out on
And
the
he
field
did.
wearing 6
And he
because
did.
he's Randy Moss, and he's
Do you remember what Dante Culpepper's first number was?
12.
Yeah.
I do remember that because I had Madden 99
Yep.
For the old PlayStation when I was a kid.
QB number 12.
And then, yeah, he was like a 62 coming out. And
that was when they didn't even have
they had to
names.
change that pretty quickly. They didn't have Madden adjusters back then
Right.
to like fix their ratings. So you had to wait until the following year when he was on the cover to
They had like fake pictures too for them, like
yeah.
computer generated. Those are the days.
Those were the days. Hey man, what's going on at the Viking Age right now?
Oh, nothing really to talk about this week. So it's probably gonna be pretty quiet.
Hard to blog. Yeah.
No, I've been working my butt off since yesterday, just trying to get stuff out of there because it's part of the job, and these are the times that I enjoy the most, where like stuff happens. I'm not saying I'm so excited that Kirk Cousins got hurt, but like this is why a lot
You
of this.
were cheering as he was on the
Yes,
carts. You were just
I
like,
mean
you had
did.
your Kirk voodoo doll, and you're
I
just
mean
stabbing more and more
this,
pins
this
into his ankle so it
the
hurt more.
the site coincidentally did have the best day of the month last year, so do what you will with that.
Uh,
When if it bleeds, it leads. But I mean, it's true. But yeah, well,
uh,
I think we've got someone predicting the rest of the season this week, the game by games, and that'll be definitely a lot different than probably some of the past predictions with no quarterback. Um, and then we'll get ready for the Falcons game, and obviously we'll react to any moves that the Vikings make this week in terms of quarterback, or if they do make a trade at the trade deadline. The trade deadline is at 3 p.m. Central tomorrow.
mhm.
A couple trades have already been made today. I think, like I said, the Seahawks got Leonard Williams, defensive tackle from Giants. I think the Falcons got a pass rusher from the Eagles. And there could be some more stuff. But I've heard that this year's not a lot. Like, it's pretty quiet. I know there's teams that are still looking for stuff, but it sounds like it's been pretty quiet in terms of those trades. Last year we had Christian McCaffrey, T.J. Hawkinson, was it Roquan Smith too? Was that last year too?
Yeah. Yep.
So
To Baltimore.
yeah, that was a lot that happened last year. But yeah, we'll be cranking out stuff. Be new month. This it's November already. We're almost to 2024. It's crazy.
Wild.
Yeah, and then we'll be close for the draft.
And as you can see, you can follow Adam at Adam Patrick NFL on social media. Quick little
Threads
note
too.
from what's going on in the chat. Yeah, threads everywhere.
Threads.
He's here, he's there, he's every fucking where. Adam Patrick. What was your first jersey growing up? People are talking about it in the chat.
Believe it or not, it was Alan Page.
Solid.
I had no idea who it was. My parents got it for me. And I was like, this isn't Chris Carter. Who is this? I eventually did get a Chris Carter jersey. I think that was my second jersey.
Yeah.
And Randy Moss and Culpepper and all that. I think the last jersey I bought, though, was Teddy Bridgewater. I still have it hanging up behind me. A little white. I think I got it from China. A white stitched Teddy Bridgewater jersey. But I haven't bought a jersey in a long time. Yeah, I have another player's jersey that I'm not going to speak his name, but I have that as well. Not number 42.
I have two names in my head, so once upon a time I had the one jersey we're thinking about.
Oh, a lot of people did.
Yeah,
I don't fault anyone for that.
In the trash for obvious reasons.
I fault the people for still wearing that jersey. I will fault those people.
Yes. Yes. My first jersey overall, Orlando Magic 32, Shaquille O'Neal.
Oh yeah. Oh, overall.
Yeah.
Larry Johnson. Charlotte Hornets.
What?
Larry Johnson?
I'm saying my first jersey overall any sport.
No, I'm saying my first overall was Larry Johnson.
Oh, grandma.
Yeah.
Or grandmama.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I had a David Robinson Team USA jersey way back in the day from like the 96 Olympics.
As an older person, like the 90s NBA jerseys are just cash suckers now. Like I got like one of those black like Charles Barkley jerseys from the 90s that are like pretty cool.
Those Seahawks throwbacks yesterday. Oh,
those were nice.
So
those were very nice.
Those are
and then also my first football jersey was a Chris Carter jersey. I saved up the money in my piggy bank.
Was that before 98?
Oh, it was well before 98. It was like mid 90s.
Oh,
so and then I had Chris Carter, and then I had a this is last thing, and then we'll get moving. But for Christmas in 98, Randy Moss was so popular that they could not keep the jerseys on the shelf, and there was no like online stuff, so you couldn't like go somewhere else and get it. So like what they did was they started stocking everywhere with these gold Viking jerseys. And like my parents got
I
me
remember
a
those.
gold Randy Moss jersey. It was like gold, and then it had like white outlines and purple numbers. And it was just like, it was ugly as
Like
hell,
mustard?
but I wore it everywhere because I'm like, Randy Moss, man. Like it's a Randy Moss jersey.
Yeah,
and I
you're a
was
kid.
so
You don't
happy.
You don't
Yeah.
care.
Nobody cares. Then we got to high school. Like, why do you have a gold Randy Moss jersey? I'm like, why don't you have one?
I think I remember the Culpepper ones like that too. Yeah, I remember seeing those.
Yes.
And now people want they want the Vikings to have like a yellow or gold alternate.
Please no.
And I'm like, no.
I'll take a white helmet, but no gold jerseys, please. No gold helmets, no gold jerseys.
Would you take black before gold?
I'm wearing a bunch of black Vikings
Yeah,
stuff right
you
now.
you love black Vikings clothes.
But
You and Mike Zimmer.
like in a jersey, yeah. Oh my! I want to see the idiot that handed Mike Zimmer like a purple shirt. Well, he did wear purple stuff for a little bit. But
he always wore some sort of black though.
He went full black like towards the end of his tenure because he was like dead
funeral
inside.
every week.
Just my defense sucks. All right. Well, on that note, that is all the time we have for the Viking Age podcast today. We do this every Monday and Thursday night right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We're also on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But don't forget to rate, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. For Adam Patrick, I am Chris Schad, and this has been the Viking Age podcast.